Just a second. All right, so session 2 is all about organizing our space, okay? And if you have not done session 1 yet, if you're watching this recording and you're like, ooh, I want to organize all the things, but you have not done session 1 yet, I encourage you to stop this video if you're on the recording and go back and do session 1. Just to review real quick, we talked about whys. So for instance, some of my whys are, I decided we were going back to homeschooling because of COVID. I decided that I could do a better bad job with academics than what they were currently getting in their present environment. Even if I was doing a bad job, it was a better bad job than what was going on. I knew that if we homeschooled, that there would be less anxiety in their atmosphere of learning. And that was really important to me. But ultimately, I realized that I wanted them to know how to love God and love others well. And that in their current environment, that was something that they were having a difficulty really digging into. And so this is my why. And these kinds of things, if you've done this yesterday, I encourage you, it doesn't have to look as ugly as mine, but it can. I encourage you to post these somewhere where you go to cry about school. All right. If that's your bathroom over, in the corner, post it on the wall in the bathroom in the corner where you can remember, why did I decide to take on all of this responsibility? Okay. So if you've got your whys down, great job. And then I hope you created your lists. Here's an example of one of the ones that I did for my daughter, Rachel. I know the words are blurry. I'm sorry about that. But I just jotted down, what do I know about her that's important? I know she's independent and focused, and she really likes order, which clues me into having her stuff and her space and everything really well organized is going to be good for her. So that kind of clues me into the priorities, right? I jotted down just what she's taking this year. I know she's taking Algebra 2 and British Literature and Art and Latin and Biology and Debate. All of her subjects I've got figured out. And then I just jotted down some things that came to mind that I knew she was going to need, that I might need to check on. I wanted her to have a crate for her books and a backpack. I want to make sure that her headphones work really well. I know she's going to need at least a 5-subject notebook, and I want to make sure her laptop's okay. Does she need a calculator, a sketch pad, some personal lab supplies? I'm not sure with COVID if she's going to be able to use group supplies or if we need to have her own. And then I remembered oh, she really is needing some friends right now. So I put that down on the bottom. And this will transfer to my prayer list. Like this one, I noticed, I want to pray about that. And so this jumps on my prayer list. So I hope you've done this. Notice this list that I made for her is already in my head. I didn't fuss around with it for a long time. I probably made this list in 5 minutes. Okay. But it does help you get some things off your brain. And as you think of stuff, you have a place for it to land. Okay. So I hope you've gotten your list together. I hope you did your declarations of intent to homeschool if you're in Georgia. If you're in a different state, I hope that you figured out what those legal requirements are and went ahead and started doing what's necessary to take care of them. There is such a peace of mind in going ahead and getting those out of the way. So, oh, good. I'm glad to see that they're not blurry. Thank you. Awesome. I don't know why it's blurry on my screen. That's weird. All right, so let's jump into our second session, space. We're going to talk about all the different aspects of creating space for your schooling and your life. Now, actually, a lot of these will apply whether you are homeschooling or not. It's all about creating a space for supplies, for books, for backpacks, for and not letting it take over your world, but also incorporating it into your life. I know a lot of us have heard about homeschoolers saying it's a way of life. And I think from a practical standpoint, what sometimes is meant by that is that homeschooling begins to take over. Um, it starts to influence every area of our lives. It's not isolated in and of itself. And so I encourage you to allow space for that to happen, because you don't, if you're homeschooling, you don't have a school room usually. Most people don't have an official classroom that they use for school. And as a result, you start to see little bits of schooling at home begin to kind of take over your spaces. And I just want to encourage you that that's okay. It's okay for it to take over some of your spaces. So we're going to talk about how to do that in a way that doesn't drive you crazy. Okay. The first thing that I'll mention to you is, in an effort to create peace and an environment that is inviting for education, the first thing, if you haven't done this, is I encourage you to box up a bunch of crap. Okay. If your space is really busy and it's got lots of stuff in it, it's going to make it harder to focus. And especially toys, if you have a hard time keeping toys picked up in your house or things like that. When we really got into homeschooling, I boxed 90% of our toys up into containers and put them all in the attic. Not so that they couldn't play with them, but because I needed to find ways to make it easier to keep everything orderly, because I couldn't focus on teaching them if I was distracted by everything around us. So if you have a challenge of just keeping the clutter at bay anyway, I encourage you to spend, maybe 30 minutes a day for the next several, days, or maybe even a couple of weeks, depending on how much it is, picking out things and that maybe you want to keep, but go ahead and just stick it in the attic. You can always rotate things out. You can always say, you know what, we're tired of these books. I'm just going to switch out a box of books. Or they've played with Legos long enough. I'm going to put the Legos in the crate and I'm going to bring out the whatever. We have Playmobil. So I'll put the Legos away and I'll bring out the Playmobil, and then that'll be the toy that they play with, that kind of thing, rather than having everything everywhere. And that will make a huge difference in how much people can focus. Okay. So that's kind of the basics of getting organized. And if you want some help in knowing how to organize some things, check out Real Life Organizing. It's a book by Cassandra Arsen, Arssen. She has a YouTube channel called Clutterbug too. And one of the most helpful things that she talks about is that there are different organizing styles. And when I discovered this, and she types them into different bugs, but when I discovered this, it made a world of difference for how I felt in my organizing. I discovered that I like to have easy access to things, but I like it to go behind a door and be not seen. I prefer things to be closed off. Other people prefer things to be open. They don't want to have it closed off. They're afraid it's going to get forgotten about. And so organized looks like put away, but still visible. So she talks about some of this in her material, and it has been life-changing for both me and a number of other people that I've talked to in recognizing different organizing styles that finally work for them. So if you want to check that out, that is the book you can get is Real Life Organizing. Her YouTube channel is The Clutterbug, I believe, and you can learn all about how she categorizes different types of organizing, and that might help you find out your own style and help inform you what works best for you. Okay, so in that vein of what works best for you, there's 100 different ways to organize school, but the primary thing you are going to need is a landing space for your stuff and their stuff. Okay, you're going to need a landing space for your stuff and their stuff. Now, different people have done this different ways, and I can tell you I've done it a lot of different ways myself. Um, at one place where we lived, I had an official school room, and I had desks, and we had posters, and I had all our stuff in there, and we had all our books in there, um, and and that's how we did school for a little while. In another time of life, I actually had a really long living room, and so I carved out one section of it. I pulled everything in for the living room, and then on this end, I actually created a school space. And so I had 5 desks in there. I had several bookcases. I had stuff on the walls, and that worked for us for a time. When my kids got a little bigger and I wanted all the space of the living room, I actually spread out my furniture for my living room, and I got rid of all of our end tables, and I put desks on the ends of the couches and incorporated our schoolroom into our living room. So we had a combination of desks and seating areas in that space, and that allowed us to have both school and cozy living room environment in the same space. At the time, I didn't have another space to put kids and their stuff, and so that's just how we did it. We incorporated it into our living room. Later, when they get older, they tend to do more independent work, and so we took the desks out of the living room and we put them into their bedrooms, and that allowed them to have more independent study. And then what I ended up having in the main space was a giant bookcase of my things that were more the teacher's manuals and the supplies that we needed to do activities all together. And so they had their stuff in their rooms, and I had my stuff in the landing space. After having done all of these different varieties of school, I can tell you that if I had a lot of little people, I like having a space in the main area for them to sit and have school, because the little kids that are trying to learn to write really need a space, and I like having a space that can keep their stuff with them. So my ideal scenario personally is that I would look for a way to incorporate a couple of little kid-sized desks or something equivalent into our living area. As far as having a school room, the benefit of that is for storage. I found that I did not end up using a school room to teach almost ever because of the multifaceted needs that our family had in any given day. So I wanted to be able to have them at the dining room table, for instance, or have them at their space and come over, check a couple of problems, go back to washing the dishes, or come over and help them read aloud the instructions for something, go throw a load of laundry in, make dinner, scrub the bathroom. And so that kind of happened all in the main environment. Does that make sense? Rachel says, I like to have everything in its place, but I like to see it. Yeah, I'm the open door. I'm gonna miss it. Organizer, yes. Right. A place for everything and everything in its place. Absolutely, Rachel. And you can do that a variety of ways, but I do encourage you to do that. So having a landing space is a way to have a place for everything and everything in its place. And so I'm going to show you some of what has worked well for us, and you don't have to use it. Okay. If it doesn't work for you, throw it out. Okay. This is not the end all be all of ultimate organizing. It's just a way. Okay. So currently what is working well for us, because we have older kids that are doing more independent work, is I have a desk in their rooms for each of them. And we didn't have enough space in the room to have desks in every room. And so a number of our kids actually have loft beds, and they have their desk underneath the loft bed. 3 of them, we actually built them ourselves, which was fun and we wanted to do. That's not something that everybody looks to do, but you can If you can find a cheap set of bunk beds, a lot of times you can get a bunk and just disconnect one of the bottom rails and you have a loft bed. And then if you keep the other three, then that gives the stability that's needed on the bottom. And you can put stuff underneath the bed if you're really tight on space. If you don't have a desk, you can go to Walmart and get one of those cheap folding tables and throw that underneath and give them a chair, and now they've got a little desk area. Okay, this doesn't have to be complicated, but that's what some of my kids have. My older boys do have enough space in their room to have a bed and a desk next to it. So they have independent learning spaces. And that's what this is, the independent workspace. Where are they doing their work and where are they keeping their work? All right. So my kids have their workspace, and the way that we store their materials is with a crate. So I'll explain why in a minute, but just one of these Walmart crates is what we use. And I put their books in here, and they also have a backpack. Okay. They go to a co-op. They're going to be going to a co-op class 1 day a week. And so they'll need to take some of their materials with them 1 day a week. And so they get a crate and then a backpack, and that way they can pull the things out that they need, tuck them in their backpack. A lot of times what happens is that everything will live in the backpack, and when they come home, they put their backpack in their crate with whatever extra supplies they have in there that they aren't using. Okay, so this is cheap, it doesn't cost a lot, but it gives them a way to house this. The other thing I like about the crate is that one of the benefits of using a crate and a backpack, and one of the benefits of homeschooling, is the ease of travel. So frequently we have taken our whole family and just decided to go somewhere. And if they're already storing all of their school books in a crate and a backpack, it's not very much trouble to just pack that into the vehicle and go wherever you want to have school. And so as a result, sometimes I've said, hey, we're headed to the park, or we're headed to grandma's for a week. Grab your crate, throw it in the car, we are good to go. And I don't have to worry about figuring out how to pack all of that stuff in order to be able to go somewhere. It makes it really easy for us to sort of take our schoolwork somewhere else just for a break. And it's really nice to be able to change it up and say, go to the park, and little kids can play, and the bigger kids can sit at the picnic tables and do their work outside, and it kind of gets a new environment. And so that's one of the benefits of being able to homeschool. Why not actually make it easy, right? All right, I'll show you another slick trick that I've used for myself, because when I was tutoring in classical conversations, excuse me just a second, my kids are making noise. Hey, if you guys want to be noisy, I recommend going up to your room to do that. Understand? Okay. So sorry about that. So when I was tutoring, I had a bunch of books that I had to take back and forth also, and yet I wanted to be able to reference them. And so that's what I did with this. I got just a file box that fit in the crate, and I had a bookcase for where my stuff went. And actually, I don't have it anymore, but I did have, those little Walmart containers that are drawers that they fit right here. And so I had two crates. I had one with drawers and a file box, and the other one that was just blank that allowed for all the teacher's materials. And so what I would do is I put all of my things in the crate that I needed, and I could carry it to wherever I needed to go. I could throw it in the trunk, I could put it in the back of our van. And then when I got home, I would turn it sideways and set it up on the shelf. And then it became a bookcase for me to be able to grab stuff, and it didn't all have to live on the floor. And that's one of the benefits of being able to do that for your kids as well, is that they can come home and they can set their stuff up on their desk, and it becomes sort of a makeshift bookcase. It's easy to find things, but you can travel with the bookcase. And so that gave us a lot of flexibility, and it gave a space for everything. So that's one of the things that I've used before that's really functional. But I encourage you to have some sort of bookcase or dresser or someplace in the main area of your house where you're going to store some of your materials, at least some of your materials, not everything, not the storage, but some of the materials that you're using on a regular basis. Because as good intentions as you have of taking those things back to whatever room you have them stored in, the bottom line is you're going to end up doing your stuff on the couch or on the dining room table, and you're going to want to clean it up. And if it's all the way downstairs or upstairs or wherever that's not in the dining room or the living room, you're going to shove it over on your buffet, or you're going to shove it over on the coffee table, and that's where it's going to live. That's where it's going to live, because you're in a hurry to clean it off to be able to eat dinner or whatever, and it's not going to go anywhere else. So that's why I say incorporate school into your house and find a spot in the main living area where you can put your things. Okay, so that's creating a landing space for your stuff. Feel free to ask any questions if you want. I want to make sure that this makes sense to everybody. I currently, for what we're doing this year, have a bookcase in our entryway. That's just where it fits. I already have a lot of things in my dining room, and I didn't want it in here, but it is still on the main level of the house, and it's not so far that I won't put things away. And that's where I keep all my teacher manuals, all my answer keys. If I'm doing any read aloud books, that's where they're going. I'll end up having an extra stack of like notebook paper and notebooks in there. Not everything, but some things, right? And then the rest of our school stuff, all the extra supplies, maybe things that we aren't using this year, or like if the kids wanted to pick out a book to read or something like that, all of that lives in a room in our basement, which looks like it would be ideal for school. But I know that I will never go down there to have school. I'm going to have it in the living room and at the dining room table. So it took me a while to get over that, but we're there, and that's how we do it. Okay, so that's your landing space, having independent workspace for them. We talked a little bit about traveling and making it easy for them to travel. The other thing that I like doing for being able to travel around with your schoolwork and stuff is that I bought myself a good computer bag for myself. So it's just a hefty, nice bag, and it's got a spot for my laptop. But I wanted something that is my kind of like, this is where I'm taking this with me when I go, and I'm going to throw in whatever I'm working on for them. And it's an established location for, this is always the bag that I take with me when I need to work on schoolwork somewhere else or work on business stuff somewhere else. It's just the go-to bag. So I've kind of earmarked that bag as, this is the one I take with me. A lot of people really like a backpack, especially if you've got little kids and you're trying to figure out how to carry them at the same time. Getting a laptop backpack or something like that for yourself is going to be really helpful too, if you like this idea of being able to take school on the go with you. Because you'll find that you have to take books too. You're going to want to take your answer key, or you're going to want to take your teacher's manual or whatever. And your kids are already going to have enough stuff in their bags, right? So make it easy to pick up and go. That's one of the fun things about being able to homeschool, is that we can take it where we want to go. All right. The next thing is creating toddler space. A lot of you have little kids that are, well, let me know in the comments, how many of you have little people that you're trying to figure out, what do I do with them while we're in school? How do I keep them from pulling out all of the pots and pans in the kitchen, or getting into and unrolling all of the toilet paper in the bathroom while I'm trying to teach this child math? Let me know if that's you, if you've got some of those little people in the comments. I want to know, because that's a real challenge. It's a real challenge to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing with this little kid, and how do I keep up with them at the same time that I'm paying attention to the other people? So, anybody? This kind of gives me a chance to see how delayed we are too. I'm just checking the comments here. Dun, 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 dun. I hope this is making sense. And please let me know if you are, if this is making sense to you, if you have any questions. Okay, great. Enid, my youngest is 10 months and already walking, super chaotic. Yep, there we go. Busy work for kindergartner while I focus on others. Okay, cool, Jill. Yep. Sarah, 2-year-old, into everything. 5-year-old starting kindergarten, oldest 10. Yep. Toddler days behind it. Awesome. Yep. All right, youngest 14. Yep. So hopefully they can stay out of the pots and pans cabinet. Unless they're cooking your dinner. Maybe they should be in the pots and pans cabinet. 3-year-old, alternately very chatty and dangerously quiet. I know all about the dangerously quiet. Oh man. 4-year-old who I'd like to incorporate into the school day to some extent, and almost 2-year-old who is the craziest of the boys so far. Yes. Good. Okay. So you guys are right on track with, okay, we need this space. Yes. So here's the deal with that. There are, 3 aspects of managing the toddlers while you're trying to do your schoolwork. The first one is incorporate them into everything you possibly can. Incorporate them into everything you possibly can. Let them do what you're doing, even if it feels stupid. And I'm going to say this to the degree of when I was doing read alouds with my kids when they were younger, and I had a toddler that couldn't pay attention, but I would allow the older kids to draw or color. I had materials there for my toddler to draw or color as well. When we were working on handwriting, and I bought handwriting books for all of the older kids, I spent money on a handwriting book for my 2-year-old. Not because I thought that they would learn to do handwriting, but because I was paying for the ability to keep their attention on the same thing that I was already doing. So I'm not paying for a book for them to learn handwriting. I'm paying for the ability to keep them integrated with what we're doing already. So maybe that meant we got a handwriting book. Maybe that meant that I went to one of the big, the big bulk stores that often have these like all-in-one school workbooks for 3 or 4-year-olds or whatever. I would get one of those, like at Sam's Club or Costco or like different places like that sell those. I would get one. Are we going to use the whole thing? Absolutely not. I would buy the thing knowing we might only use maybe a quarter of the pages, but they like to feel involved, even for a little bit. And for a toddler, if you're sitting down and doing math with your first grader or your second grader, and you put a little math coloring sheet in front of your 3-year-old, 5 minutes of them scribbling all over that sheet and saying, here's your math, is golden. It's golden because they're there doing the same thing and you don't have to wonder what they're doing, right? And so getting creative, you're paying for the ability to keep their attention on the same thing that you are already doing. So that's the first thing for toddlers is, can you keep their attention on the same thing you're already doing? Look for creative ways to do that. Look at what you're planning for your children already and how you can incorporate that little one. The second thing that you can do is you can strategically have educational things that they're allowed to do during the time that you're doing school that they are not allowed to use at any other time of the day. All right. And so some of the things that I've used that way are, we have little pattern blocks that build, like you can build shapes or you can build animals or things like that. They're different designs like hexagons and diamonds, and they go together to build different designs. And for a long time, for instance, that was one of the toys that we had that was available for my younger kids to use when I was schooling my older kids. But when school was over, that was not an option for them to be able to play with. And it's not about being mean, it's about helping maintain the interest for that particular thing. It's special, it's something that it's their school, and they do it at the time that everybody else is doing school. So having some of those things can be good. I want to check some of your other comments here. 3-year-old, yeah, I read that one. Okay, let's see. Gave up on hiding the pots and pans. They're fair game. Yep, and wooden spoons. Yes, I agree. I also have in my kitchen, because I end up having a lot of nieces and nephews over, they all know that the Tupperware cabinet is fair game. And so that's the one that they go to. And as a result, because they know that's the cabinet that's okay to play with, they leave the rest of them alone. And so I'm willing to deal with the Tupperware going all over every place in exchange for not getting under the sink or with all the other dishes and things like that. So yes, we do that too. Some of that is good too. Recognize, getting really clear, like, okay, if they're going to get into something, what is it that I'm okay with them getting into, and having that be available. So first, you've got incorporate them into everything you possibly can. Second, come up with the things that they're allowed to use during school time that you are saying they're off limits during other times in the day. And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because you probably feel a little guilty about putting them away and not letting them play with it at other times. But I encourage you to hang on to that. And then the last thing is being strategic about who looks after them. So this is a skill that moms often use when you have large families. Is that you take the oldest child, even if they're 5 or 6, and let them do an activity with the youngest child while you're doing something with the middle kid. And then switch off. Give the middle kid an assignment with the youngest child while you're doing something with the older kid. And if you can give them a purpose, a lot of times they'll play very intentionally. So that could include things like, I let my 7-year-old who's just learned to read, I give them a super easy book. I don't have a 7-year-old right now, but when I did have a 7-year-old, I would give them a super easy book that was way below their reading level and say, part of your school today is to read to your 3-year-old brother. Or I want you to go over and play Hot Wheels cars with him right now while I'm doing math with him. Give them a specific direction. And one way that you can do that is by having a list of ideas because that's often what the problem is we don't know what to tell them to do. So if you grab that list that I dropped yesterday, the summertime fun activities for kids, on that list, you'll see a lot of different ideas, and just highlight a few, print it off, highlight a few of them that are like, okay, these are things that I could tell one child to help somebody else with. One of my favorites is getting painter's tape and having an older boy, as in like 5 and up, build roads with painter's tape, and for a younger child to roll their Hot Wheels cars on. And so the nice thing about that is that they can put it over the couch, they can do it over the coffee table, they can make mountains, they can roll it all around. And you just don't want to leave it there. And we did find out that if you leave it on the floor and walk on it for a long period of time, it has a hard time coming up. But if it's just a short-term thing, or it's on furniture or walls or things like that for a short period of time, say, 2 or 3 days or less, then it comes up no problem. It doesn't leave marks on things. It doesn't pull the paint off. It doesn't all that. And it's kind of a creative way of giving parameters to where they can roll their cars. It's kind of a new adventure to be able to create roads and parking spaces and stuff like that. So that's just a little example of a way that you can entertain them. So we've done pattern blocks, we've done Hot Wheels cars, we have little animals that they can create a farm with, all kinds of little things. I try to come up with a variety of things that don't include video games, because I know that I default to those a lot. With like, that doesn't need to be the plan. I'll go to that anyway. So the things that I work on planning is, what am I going to put in this toddler space that allows them to really enjoy playing with things. Let me show you one other thing. A long time ago, I picked something up from a homeschool convention that's worked really well, and I just kind of added to it. So if you get one of these little plastic boxes, a long time ago when my kids were young, Joyce Herzog was doing these called School in a Box, but it's just one of these little plastic organizer things. And what's in here is just a variety of little things. So little animals, or there's a dice in here, there's different size squares or shapes. And basically what you can do is you can get one of these little containers and find the little trinkets that don't have a very good purpose in your house and begin collecting them in the little box, okay? Whether it's little animals or shapes. The erasers that people get that are funky, like, who actually ever uses these to erase anything? Nobody. Nobody uses these for anything. But you can put them in this little box. And then what you have is you have a little box of things that you can put on the table that your 3-year-old can sit there and play with while your other children are doing school. And what we've actually done with this before, if you're looking for a way to use it productively, is you can do things like, I want you to pick out 3 items. And so they might pick out the lizard, the blue square, and I have a little bathtub shape in here. I picked up some random button shapes at Michael's one time. And so there were different little pictures that went into this box. So, okay, you've got this lizard and this blue square and this bathtub. And so they've picked out their 3 things, and then they're going to tell a story about these 3 items. And it's actually, it's actually a good way for them to learn how to put a story together. It gives them some context for what's going on and some creativity, some imagination. It gives some purpose to the toys. So maybe their lizard is living in the bathtub, and this blue brick falls on the house and crushes him, because that's a story that little boys would tell, right? If it was a little girl, the lizard she might be giving the lizard a bath, and when he's all done, because he was good, he got a present, right? So just different ways of using this, but this is one of the things that I like because it allows them some creativity. It's something that I put away and they don't use any other time, except for while my bigger kids are doing school. I didn't collect this overnight. I got the box. I found a few things in my house and I put them in there. And then this was something that has just kind of built over time, right? So when I would get some little toy here or there, I would think, oh, that could go in the school in a box, and I would just throw it in there. But I also love that it's small and it doesn't take up a lot of space in my house. So I can kind of tuck it away in my buffet or wherever, and it's kind of a backup, hey, quick, pull it out thing. And my giveaway today is my favorite toddler activity, which if you're still on right now, I think I'll show it to you now. And then we'll do our communication space here. So hang on. Okay, so my last suggestion for favorite toddler activities, ways to keep them entertained, is I think it's a toy that has been ignored for many years. But if you're my age, you'll remember using these quite a lot, probably when you were younger, or they were really popular a long time ago. But I love them. So if you go to the website bettylukens.com, Betty, B-E-T-T-Y, Lukens, Lukens.com. She has felt sets for little kids, and she has some really cute ones. So I'm giving away 2 today. I'm giving away the ones that are currently in my house. Why? Because when you order them from her, they come needing to be put together. You need to know that if you decide that you're going to go buy one of these for your toddler, you better like crafting, because you do have to have a pair of sharp crafting scissors, and you have to cut the pieces out, and you have to build the book yourself. Okay, so you've been forewarned not to go buying that thing unless you are okay with putting it together. But it's been worth it to me. I put lots of them together and given them as gifts to people, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'll show you 2 of my favorites. This is Grandma's Farm, and it has little doors that can open and little people. There's a little hayloft. You open it up and it's got a barn and a chicken, right? So it's got different pages. And then there are tons of little felt pieces that you can use to put on there's a watermelon, lots of different little children. So Grandma and Grandpa's Farm, I'm giving this one away today, right after I drop all the pieces on the floor. But what I like about these is that it's a little bit like playing house or creating a story or something like that, but it's very quiet. And so we've actually used these in a variety of ways. We've taken them places where the kids needed to be really quiet. Restaurants while they're patiently waiting for their food to get there, or church, or doctor's office, and I don't want them to play with the other toys in the room, or things like that. But I've also used them as a school activity. So we have the barn, and then the other one I'll show you, she has lots of them, is a little more geared towards probably a little girl, though my boys have enjoyed playing with it too. But there's all these different cats, right? And then what you do is the cats have clothes that you can put on them. And there's all kinds of different different outfits that you can put on the cat. Now, the nice thing about these is that you can help your kid learn to, you can just give it to them for entertainment and say, here, why don't you dress all the cats? Or you can help a toddler learn aspects of, like, why don't you dress the cat for winter? Or why don't you dress the cat for going to the beach? And so they have to select the materials out of the pile of clothes that will go on the cat that are appropriate for that season or that activity or things like that. And then the other thing that I've done is there are literally like hundreds of pieces that go with this. And so sometimes I'll pull out a bunch of pieces, put them in a Ziploc bag, and I won't give them all the pieces at the same time. Especially for a younger child, it's really overwhelming. So I'll give them, you know, like if there's 6 cats in here, I might give them 6 outfits. All right. So these are the 2 that I'm giving away for people that are online right now. So if you've commented, if you haven't commented, you don't get one. You're not in the running. All right, so I'm going to do the drawing. For the barn, it is sorry, I'm just going down my list here of who's on and combining it with the number that gets pulled. So give me just a second. All right, so the people who commented, the first drawing goes to Ina. Is that how you say your name? Ina? The barn goes to Ina? Or do you say it Ina? I don't know. Yeah, that's yours. Congratulations. If you want to comment that you heard me, and then send your address to me in private message, and I will mail out your barn felt set to you. All right, and then the second one goes to the cat. Ina, okay, awesome. Yeah, congratulations. The second one is going to Shannon Brown. So send me your address, Shannon, if you're still on, and you get the cat felt set, and Ina gets the barn. Congratulations. All right, and those are, like I said, I don't get anything. If you go to that website and you buy your own, I don't get any affiliation. It's just the things that I love. So awesome. Okay. All right, just let me know that you heard me, Shannon, so that I'll wait for a second to make sure you heard me. All right, so those are my 2 gifts. Let me write that down so I don't forget. There you are. And Shannon. Great. All right, so then the final piece down here is communication. All right, so creating space for communication is going to help you feel organized in your mind. So we've talked about the physical space. Creating communication spaces really frees your mind up. And I'm going to suggest to you that this is going to make you feel more organized if you do this piece. Then some of these will actually, because you're organizing what's up here, and that's going to be really helpful. So for instance, where are you going to communicate your schedule to the rest of your family? The more things that you can communicate through written things that you post around your house, the less you have to communicate through your mouth. The more you can have them hold responsibility for knowing what's going on. So if you come up with a daily schedule or you have a month calendar, we have like a whiteboard that has a calendar on it for the month that I jot down major family commitments, you know, if there's youth activities, or if we're going to church, or if we're going to co-op, or if we've decided to go to the park or something like that. All that gets communicated on that board. Having a place where that is. Tasks. This includes chores. And I really encourage you to deciding on a big, like, organized chore process is something that I'm not covering in this training. I do that in my group coaching program, but I'm not doing that in this training. But I do encourage you to at least come up with a few tasks that each person is responsible for every day that focus on the main areas of the house staying tidy. So maybe what you have is you have somebody that checks the bathroom, somebody that tidies the living room, and somebody that unloads the dishwasher or something like that. They don't have to be complicated. You don't have to take days and days to figure this out. They can be the same chore over and over again for the same person, and actually it will help them develop that skill more faithfully. What we've done for years is assigned chores, and then they keep that chore for a year, and then we rotate and they have a different chore the next year. It allows them to get really good at the chore and have ownership of it. And if they didn't clean it well the last time, it's still their job to clean it up. So that makes it easy to incorporate help in keeping these spaces tidy, as well as communicating those tasks. So we have a short list of things that my kids do, like make their bed, clean their room, get dressed, read their Bible, those 4 items, and then they each have a space in the house to clean, whether it's I want you to clean the bathroom, or your job is to tidy up the living room, or your job is to sweep and mop the kitchen. They have one space that they're supposed to clean every day. And so it's really simple. It's not a complicated list. You can do this, okay? And it doesn't take a long time to put it together. But then post those somewhere. So I type that up, and then I put a list on the refrigerator. I put a list on our little cork board next to our calendar. And I put, and I gave a list to each of the kids so that they would have their chores in their room. They could know what that was. Now I don't have to all the time be remembering what they are, and I don't have to communicate them verbally all the time. And if I do forget and they come and ask me, I have the list on the refrigerator and the list on the cork board that I don't have to have it in my brain. I can go find out what it is. I also like to communicate the food plan, or at least some attempt at communicating a food plan to my kids, so that when they say what's for dinner, at least half the time I can say, go look at the list. Or if I've written down a food plan, sometimes the things that I write down on there, I switch it around, but it helps me not try to remember what's available in the house to eat. I'll go and make a menu. I'll put it on all the different days. I don't go to the store. Brandon goes to the store. This is how we don't go bankrupt, is Brandon does the grocery shopping in our family. So he'll go to the store, get the stuff. So I know that I have the supplies in the house to make these 5 meals. And even if we don't have them on those days, I can know, okay, I do have the supplies to make taco dip or this kind of soup or whatever. And so it allows me to communicate more easily about what we're eating. And some of those simple daily things are things that take up a lot of brain space. And when you're trying to do academics with your children, it's a lot harder to keep all of these pieces in your brain because you don't have the silence of thinking about it that you do when they go to school. All right. So this just allows you to be able to strategically come up with stuff and not use your your brief silent moments in the day for these things. You're also going to want to know, where are you going to put their completed work, and where are you going to display things? They're going to make stuff, they're going to create things, and I don't like it all over my house. It starts to look messy and disorganized. So I like the idea of having a wall or a room where we display materials, and figuring out what that is and where it's going to be is really helpful. You don't have to put anything there, just figure out which one it is. And then, where are you putting their completed work? I recommend in your landing space having a place or a folder for each child that when they get done with their work, they give it to you, unless it's in a workbook that it's not going to come out of. That allows you to be able to hang on to it, and then when you need it, to be able to, for whatever record keeping purposes, or just so that all of their stuff doesn't end up full of papers and things like that. You keep track of the completed work instead of them. So I like having a folder for each child to stick their completed work in there, and that lives with me in my landing space, not in their independent workspace. They don't know what to do with it after they're done. So that goes down here. All right. So those are the things. I'll post the homework for today. And this will conclude the training for this particular session and open it up for any questions you have. It can be about organizing your space. It can be about communicating tasks to people, whatever, or it can be follow-up questions from yesterday. If you have things that came up yesterday about your fears about things, or stuff like that, we can answer those questions as well. So these are some suggestions for what to do for your homework. Locate the space that you're going to use and clean it out. You don't have to have it all set up, just get it cleaned out so that you can put stuff in it. Where are they going to do school, and work on getting that space set up. Any purchases that you need to make, like a crate or things like that, add it to your list. Not go out and buy it today, just add it to your list. Create some basic chore assignments. And then if you need toddler space or travel space and you want to either put some of those things on your list to purchase, or gather what you already have, I really encourage you, when you're doing these, to shop what you have in your house already. Don't feel like you've got to go buy what I have. Look around and ask the Lord to prompt you for, like, what could I use for this that I already own? So these are suggestions for what you can do for your homework today. So any questions that people have? Amanda says, I don't assign meal to days. I just choose 6 a week and figure it out that morning. Yes. My husband and teenage daughters choose menus with suggestions. Right. I love it. Yeah. We actually, from time to time, too, have also had our children choose a meal that they want to make as part of their school. And so that helps create menus, and it also helps get them involved in the kitchen. And the more you do that, the more you have children that can cook and can kind of give you a break every now and then. Cheryl says, I've made menus, but my recipes are getting old. Would love new kid-approved menus. Yeah, cool. So Cheryl, I think I have some menu suggestions in that other group, the Moms in Control group that I mentioned yesterday. I think there's some menu ideas in one of the units. I did a food, I think it's in the first 5 things unit. The first 5 things unit. I did an episode on food, and I think I linked several files in there. One of them is salad ideas, like a variety of salad mix-ups. One is a lunch matchup for ingredients that you can purchase to be able to do a variety of lunch ideas. And then I think the other one was a brainstorm of dinner suggestions. I'll double check that and make sure, but you'll find that in that group. I'm not going to post that over here because it's just another, you can go over there and look for it. All right. Moms in Control, if you want that resource. Food list. I will double check and make sure those menu brainstorms are over there though. Can I repeat the author's name for real life organizing? Yes, it's Cassandra, Cassandra, Arsen, Arssen. And she wrote that book, and I think she has a YouTube channel called Clutterbug. Yeah, anything else? You mentioned your kids' Bible reading. Is this just encouraged or enforced? I want them to do a quiet time, but not make it be because mom made me type thing. So Bible reading currently in our house is required. We do make them do it. Just like we make our kids say thank you when they're little so that they learn that that's something that they have to do. We make them put their dishes in the dishwasher because that's good cleaning habits. We make them say please because that's good manners. We make them read their Bible because we believe that that's good spiritual health. So currently what our rules are is that in the morning, if they want to have any computer time before they start school, they have to have gotten their 5 tasks done. So make your bed, clean your room. What are they? Make your bed, clean your room, get dressed. Get dressed isn't on there. Brush your teeth. They're over there listening to me. Brush your teeth, read your Bible, and then they have one other chore. Read your Bible is one of them. We had a little bit of a problem of putting reading the Bible on the list and people not being honest about whether or not they had actually read it. And it was a little bit difficult to evaluate whether or not they had done it. And so part of reading their Bible in this family includes getting onto a document on their computer, which they're going to open up anyway, because the next thing they're going to do is play video games. And they have to write one sentence about what they read. So it allows some accountability for, did you actually do that assignment? And it also helps us see when they don't understand what they're reading. Periodically, we'll go through and just see how they're doing. And I came across one of my kids the other day that wrote a sentence about like, today's story was really weird. It was all about a girl that had to sleep with her father-in-law. And I was like, whoa, okay, what are we reading? Oh, we're reading about Judah and Tamar. Yeah, that needs some conversation about what happened and whether or not that's really okay, and whether or not that's something that we think, and what the lesson is. So it allows me to kind of have an awareness about what they're reading and where they might need some follow-up conversations. And it kind of gives us some insight into their heart a little bit about what God's working on. So we do that for Bible reading. And all of our kids are required to do that. Anybody that lives in our house. So my 17-year-old son is required to do that. Do I have any chore assignment lists? Yes. That also is in that Moms in Control group. I think that I put a picture in there. Now I'm wondering if I actually put the picture in there. I do have some, but I'll double check and make sure they're over there. it would have been in the first 5 things unit under chores. So there is a training over there under first 5 things. It's a really easy way to figure out chores. And I think I did put a list there, but I'll make sure that it's over there, Nushin. You know what? I can just show you a little bit of what it looks like. Hold on. All right, you're not going to be able to read it from here, but if it's not over there, I'll take a picture of it and post it in this group and you'll be able to read it. But so this has everybody's chores on it, all 6 kids that are currently living at home. And I'll just tell you, we'll probably redo this for this year, but this is our current chores. Sorry, it's curling up, hold on. So what we've done is we have 5 chores that they're required to do the same thing every single day. That's what these are: read Bible, make bed, clean room, brush teeth, 30 minutes outside. That's what we've been doing for the summer. You have to spend at least 30 minutes outside per day. They usually spend way more than that, but it's on there. And then these sections are rotating jobs. Now, my husband came up with this, and this is more complicated than what I mentioned to you this morning. So I don't make this real difficult, but he's got everything rotating. If you want to keep it really simple, just pick a couple of things that each child needs to do and do the same thing every day, or pick like your top 3 things that you want to have stay clean in the house and rotate those around between each kid. So for instance, we also have 6 kids to give chores to, so that's a little different too. So on Monday, for instance, James is cleaning the downstairs bathroom, Jefferson's cleaning the living room, Rachel's doing the upstairs hall bathroom, Joseph is tidying the dining room, Rena's cleaning the half bathroom, and Justin tidies the foyer. So there are different jobs that we repeat over and over again, and others are based on a day of the week. So like I said, this is more complicated than what I explained up here this morning. If I was trying to keep it simple, I would do something like, James, you're in charge of making sure the downstairs bathroom is clean every day and that the dining room is clean every day. Jeff, you're in charge of making sure that that one area of the house is mopped every day and the living room is tidied. Rachel, you're in charge every day of making sure that the upstairs hall bathroom is cleaned, and and I would just leave it that's the same chore they have every single day all year long. Like, just keep it simple. They'll get over it. Will you repeat the first 5 things on the daily list, please? Yes, they were: read your Bible, make your bed, clean your room. And by the clean your room thing, I'm really just focusing on like junk picked up. I don't want a bunch of stuff on the floor. And if they're working at their desk, that has to be tidy so that they can do their schoolwork at their desk. So read Bible, make bed, clean room, brush their teeth, and 30 minutes outside. Those are the things. And they know that reading their Bible means that they read and then they write at least one sentence about what they read. I think we actually didn't say one sentence. I think we said write something. They had to write something about what they read. And that's really interesting too. Different ones of them write more or less, but I think we specifically didn't give it an amount, because what we found was some of them actually wrote quite a lot of interesting introspective things. And if we had said write one sentence, then we would have limited them. So yeah, those are the chores. Have something basic, just basic. You can make it more complicated later. Have something basic. Any other questions? These are great. Good questions. I think we are wrapping up here. I'll wait. I know there's a delay, so I'll wait just a minute for any last minute things. But otherwise, I think that's it. You've got your homework for the day, and it's going to feel so good to get this done and figured out. That's going to be wonderful. So, and we've done our giveaway, so those will be in the mail. I'm probably going to mail everything out at the same time at the end of the week. So don't be looking for your prizes until next week. Do you have a favorite children's Bible for a 10-year-old boy? Let's see, what have I used? So, I'm trying to think. We had one. What's the one that, hang on just a second. Justin, do you know where your old Bible is?
No.
You don't know where it is? All right.
I know something about it.
I know it's ripped up, but I just didn't know if you know where it is. So I like the ESV version. And Justin, who's 9, currently uses a regular Bible. He's got a really small one that has really teeny tiny words that probably would not be appropriate if this was his first round really reading it on a regular basis. So I would encourage you to get something that has bigger print. But yeah, I just have them read out of the regular Bible. And we like the ESV because it's so easy it's easier to understand than some of the other versions. But I have theological issues with the NIV, so I ignore that one. I don't want to get into that here. That's a whole nother story, but we don't use that version hardly ever. I'll use it to compare things, but we mostly use the ESV. And it's not about, oh, this is the be all end all. I will tell you one reason why we have everybody use the ESV is because if we sit down and we all read the Bible together, I want my kids to be able to follow along word for word with what we're reading. It's a way to help your little kids to practice reading out loud, to read the Bible together every day. It's like a double blessing. You get the bonus of reading something in the Bible together, and then you can have each person take turns. And learning to read out loud is a huge skill that is really beneficial. So, and the way that our kids have learned that is by sitting around reading the Bible out loud together. We don't read a lot, but the times that we have really made that a priority, we'll do like a chapter in the Psalms together and talk about, a lot of times we'll say, we'll read a chapter and then we'll say, okay, everybody go around and tell us something interesting that you noticed in the chapter. So, and sometimes I'll read, sometimes I'll have one of my older kids read, sometimes I have the younger kids read a couple of verses, or we'll take turns, but the read aloud practice is so valuable. And having everybody have the same version of the Bible is more important to me than having the younger kids have something on their level. Does that make sense? So we do that. While you're on that, how about for teens, just pick a chapter in any book. As far as the Bible, we really encourage them to read it like more systematically. So, so we encourage them to read at least a chapter. But like my son Jefferson really gets into it, and he likes trying to stay on reading enough so that he reads it through in a year. So he actually has a schedule. We printed out a read the Bible through in a year schedule, and he keeps that tucked in his Bible, and he knows what to read every day. And he's so particular about it. He'll go back and, like, if he misses a day, he'll double up and read, but that's just who he is. He's a very structured kid. It's that really syncs with his personality. Others of my kids just read a chapter a day, but we encourage them to go through, one whole book. And then if they're new to the Bible, I would recommend reading something like start with the Gospels, or start with an interesting part like Genesis, interesting story form. Don't just let them randomly pick some, if they're new to reading it on their own. If you start them in Leviticus, they're going to hate you. Let them get a little bit in, and but they often like the stories the best, even more so than Psalms and Proverbs. That can get a little bit because it's not telling a story. Sometimes that gets a little bit like they can't take in everything that it's saying, so they just tend to zone it out. So I like starting with something that has story to it. So Genesis, or like the Judges, Joshua and Judges is kind of interesting, or Ruth or Esther. Those books are really story form books. Of course, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are really interesting story form books. I would start with something like that. If I know some of you are not new to reading the Bible, and you can start in any place, but if it's brand new and you're trying to encourage that, start with one of those stories. Yeah, good. Just be aware, if you haven't read the Bible in a while, or you haven't read parts of the Bible in a while, be aware of what they're reading, because you are gonna, like, your little kids are gonna come across some topics that you're gonna want to talk about with them. Like, if you read Genesis, they're gonna come across Lot sleeping with his daughters. You're gonna have to have a conversation, like, or in Judges, one of the things that happens to one of the wicked kings is that a lady nails a tent peg through his head, and that's how the evil king is killed. And so there's some mature topics in the Bible that when your kids come across them, they're probably going to need a little parental discussion about some of those things. So don't be, it's easy to forget that, because it's the Bible and we think about Jesus being love and all of the ways that he takes care of us. And there's some amazing stories, miracles, and Jonah and the whale and things like that. There's a lot of stories in there that we don't talk about on a regular basis, that if they're reading the Bible through, they're going to come across. Funny story here at the end. I know we're out of time, but I'll just tell you a really funny story. One of the verses that sometimes our family jokes about is when my kids are teasing me or making fun of me, I tell them that I'm going to call down the she-bears. And if you've never read this story in, I think it's 2 Kings 2, about Elijah or Elisha, one of them. They're walking around in the town. It's just 2 verses. So it's a really small story. It doesn't get picked up very often. But if you've got boys and they go reading that, they're going to pick up on it. So the prophet is wandering around in the town, and this big, huge pack of boys comes along and starts teasing him and making fun of him. Specifically calling him a bald head and get on out of here, Baldy. They start making fun of him. And he commands 2 bears to come out of the woods and attack them. And 42 boys are slaughtered by bears. In 2 verses, that story happens. Bam. And you're left going like, whoa, what just happened? So we joke about it, like, don't you tease your mother, I'll call down the she-bears. But if you haven't talked about that with your children and they come across that story, it's a little startling. So there are some of those just to be aware of. And now you have a new threat to use with your children for when they won't eat their food, to go along with everything else. That's good parenting right there, I tell you. All right. So that's all for today. You've been very patient. And I think that's all. Please post in the discussion if you have any questions, and I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about what to put in that space, the curriculum and books and such. So we'll get into that tomorrow. All right. That's all for today. Get busy. Do your homework. Lots of love. Encourage. See ya.